Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we've made it. We are at the final book in the You and Me series by Lexi Timms. Now, if you haven't listened to the first two books in this series, those links are going to be listed down below in the description section. Once you finish those reviews, come and join us as we dive into the final book 3, Kiss Me. We pick up right where we left off, which was she's leaving from the attorney's office. She goes back to her apartment. Ben does what he normally does, which is do a sweep of her place, make sure no one's there. He gives the all clear, and she comes in, locks the door behind her. She is happy. She is excited that she did put in the first steps of filing for the divorce. So she is happy about that. They wind up, of course, kissing in the kitchen, screwing on the counter to exhaustion, and afterwards she is just happy to be in this moment of peace. She knows there's stuff to deal with, but she's like, it's on the outside right now, and that can wait. So then we switch to Ben's point of view, and he, of course, is happy to be with Catherine. He is very much worried about Tim. He says if he could have security there 24/7, he would, but he knows it's not something Catherine would want. So they wind up ordering food, and they pretty much have a stay-in weekend, just pretty much sex food. That just sounds great. That's a great weekend. He doesn't say anything to her about his concerns with the security and stuff like that. The only thing he does ask her is if kind of why did she keep going back and forth with not getting divorced, and she said the fear was always that he would off me if I ever did it, because he had threatened her with that when they were still together, like, if you ever leave me, I'll off you. So makes sense of why she was even more so terrified to ever do it. He was just sick and sadistic. That Tim guy is just, I tell you, he is just awful. So she is very well aware that he's going to come again for her, but she doesn't feel as weak as she did before. So that's good, We switch back to Catherine. It is Monday morning. She has gotten a call from the owner of the bakery where she used to work, and she's hoping he's going to give her a job back. So she goes in, she sees Talia, because they haven't really talked since that day that everything went down, which is, it's been like a couple weeks at this point. So they, of course, hug and everything, and crossing fingers, right? Hoping she's going to get the job back. Well, she goes in to talk to the boss, and he says, here's your final paycheck. And she's like, what? And he says, yeah, this is your final paycheck. And she's like, you called me down here for this. She was like, she told him, like, I thought you were calling me down here because you were going to give me, my job back. Well, he says to her, like, you really think I would do that? Like, no. He's like, all that stuff you caused? He's like, oh no. She's like, I was the one that was assaulted, by my ex-husband. Well, soon to be ex-husband. And you're blaming me for that? And the guy was just like, from the way I see it, your husband was the victim. My place was destroyed. People were scared to come here. All this type of stuff. So basically, he lets her know that he's going to be suing Ben for libel. And to me, this kind of sounds like, I wonder if Tim's been talking to him, because he was very much on Tim's side. For him to say, the way I see it, your husband's the victim. So I'm like, oh, he's been talking to him. He's got to be. Then I wonder if this was like some type of ploy to lure her out. I don't know. But that's what I was thinking, like, because we know that Tim is watching based on how the last book ended. So that's why I was being, like, extremely skeptical. He then says to her, for what it's worth, you really were a great worker. And she tells him it is worth absolutely nothing. He also told her before that, he had told her that she was banned for life from the bakery. So she comes out to see Talia. She tells her, I hope we stay in touch. She's like, because I can never come back again here because I've been permanently banned. And so she leaves, and now she's on the hunt because she needs to find another job. We switch back to Ben. He's at work. He's talking with Rachel. Rachel kind of want to know what's going on, and he's like, everything's going pretty good. He told her about them going to the lawyer, signing the paperwork, all that stuff. Um, Rachel is just more so concerned with how fragile she is, right? There's a lot going on. And asked him, is she in therapy? He's like, because I think she should, probably be seeing someone to kind of help her deal with this stuff. And he says I think he says he doesn't think she is, and something about her being strong, whatever. But even the strongest person, if you need to talk to someone, you need to talk. And that's a lot to deal with. So then he of course starts asking her about Will. She gets kind of coy, and I'm just kind of like, you can't be asking people how their shit is going and then not want to divulge. Like, come on, especially when your stuff is a lot more, it's happier, let's just be honest. Both of the relationships are new, but her and Will aren't like, they don't have all this dramatic shit going on, you know? So I was kind of like, no, you gotta like, you know, divulge a little bit if you're trying to get some information. So there's a knock on the door. It's Catherine. Rachel gave her a big hug, left him alone. And she told him what happened at the bakery. He apologized. He's like, I'll call, try and make it right. And she's like, no. She's like, I don't want to work for that guy anymore. Like, you do not have to do that. He, of course, kept apologizing profusely. She's like, you don't need to apologize. It's not your fault. So then she tells him about what the guy said about, basically holding him liable for the damages. And he's like, it's fine. I can handle it. And he was real nonchalant about it. And I mean, it's not him being cocky. It's just he has the money. It's not going to affect him, you know? And he doesn't want her. He already sees that, she blames herself for so much of it. So it's kind of like he doesn't want her to feel bad about it. Like, don't think that what they're going to do to me is going to hurt me, right? If they come after my money, it's not going to, they can't take all my money. You see what I'm saying? So it's not going to affect. And I think that's how he was definitely trying to kind of ease her, but you can't really ease her frustrations with it. She can't, you know. To her, he was trying to defend her, and now this is the cause of that. Even though it's the ex-husband that's the, total sociopath, you know, but and that's hard to reconcile. And I'm not going to get mad at her because I kind of got mad at her a little bit more in the second book, but I'm not going to get mad at her because I do understand like that's kind of, she's just, it's easier said than done, right? It's not your fault, but then feeling like it is your fault. So I get it. Poor girl. Catherine, she flat out told him, you do not have to, because he kept apologizing to her, and she's like, you don't have to apologize. She's like, you protected me, you know? So they keep having that guilt on both sides. So before she leaves, Rachel stops her and talks to her and asks her, if she's, speaking with anyone. And the first thing that comes out of her mouth is, I don't need any help. And I can understand someone taking offense. But at the same time, it's like, girl, a lot of stuff is being thrown at you. But Rachel's like, no. I was saying, like, if there's a place that helps women, and I thought maybe your story could maybe be really powerful and help them. And she was just kind of like, well, my story isn't really over. So once I get through it, it is something I would consider doing, and she took the card from her. And I get that. Tim is still out there, and she knows he's bound to do something. So I totally get it. So she leaves. She's going to hit the ground looking for a job. She's hoping to get a job on the spot, but it doesn't work that way. So she winds up taking a bunch of applications home, cleans her apartment, listens to some music, and just waits to see her Ben. She winds up spending the evening at Ben's place, even though he doesn't mind going to her place. But at the same time, there is more space at his home, and he also has security. So it's it feels safer. You know what I'm saying? So I totally get that. He of course likes having her there, would like to make it more permanent, but of course he's not going to ask her right now because he's not trying to scare her. So they have a great morning. They wind up playing in the shower together. She has an interview at a coffee shop that morning that's not too far from his office. And it's apparently a more upscale type of place because it's in the business district. So she's kind of nervous, but he, of course, is like, "You're going to be great." Catherine goes to the interview. It's really busy. So the guy that's interviewing her, which is the manager, winds up having to help out the crew. And she gets a text message from Tim. And he's furious that she filed those divorce papers. He tells her in the message he is not going to sign them. He says, "You made a big mistake. You think you're special. You're not. And I'm going to make your life miserable. I'm coming after your boyfriend, and I'm going to try and take every dime he has." And she was just like, "I knew it." I knew he would not leave me alone. But nobody thought he was going to leave her alone. It was literally just a matter of what is he going to do. But you knew it wasn't just like, you can't go back in that hole. I don't need her going back into book number 2, Catherine, because it's like, we can't do that naive shit no more. He's exposed himself too many times, showing what he'll do to you. In public, out of public, doesn't matter with them. So she freaks out. The interviewer comes back, and she, kind of was half listening to the guy, and the guy's like, "We'll call you back, we'll let you know." She leaves. She's like a few steps away from Ben's office, but she can't face him. She goes home. She's panicking the whole time. She thinks she hears Tim's voice. Like, poor girl, it's a bad way. She finally gets inside her apartment, and she says, "Sorry, Ben." So I truly believe old girl is about to run. Ben and Rachel both leave at 5 o'clock. They both have their dates, right? This is probably like the first time on the books because they never leave at the on time. So Rachel's like she's going home to catch up on her shows. It's not a date night for her. And Ben's like he has to go pick up Catherine for a date. He gets to her door and she won't open the door fully. And he can tell right off the bat something's wrong. She's off, right? He gave her some flowers. She thanked him, but she would never look at him. And she just says, "I don't want to go out." And he's like, "It's okay. We can just order something and stay in." She's like, "No, I wanted to stay to myself." He's like, "Okay, if that's what you want." She's like, "Yeah, it's just a lot going on. I'm very overwhelmed. And I just need my me time." And he's like, "Okay." And he's like, "Well, how did the interview go?" "It went fine." Would not look at him. So he's trying to respect her boundaries. So he's like, okay, gives her a little light peck. Nothing major. Because he didn't want her to think that he was trying to like convince her to like do anything. So he leaves. He's upset. He sits outside for a little bit before he leaves. And then he goes home and he realizes, yeah, she's not going to call. And it upset him, of course. But I mean, you can't make her do anything she don't want to do. You got to respect it. And just as I suspected, that is what Catherine is doing. Girl is packing bags. Well, she's just packing a bag and crying the whole time. She is so upset. She feels like that if she leaves, that'll draw Tim away. And then he'll be forced to leave Ben alone. And he'll come back to trying to chase after her, which is the normal pattern. She cannot face Ben. She was trying to talk herself into at least going to dinner with him, but she knew she just couldn't do it. So she goes and buys a bus ticket. She's going to Seattle. And when she gets on the bus, she meets this older woman. She's going to meet her son and her grandkids and stuff like that. They have great conversation. She's thankful, that at least she gets to sit next to this woman for the next 24 hours because she doesn't like buses. But it's the best way for her to travel and not to be tracked. So because she can like pay with cash and stuff. So she's like, again, at least I can talk to this little nice old lady. Ben wakes up the next morning. He's upset because he still hasn't heard from Catherine. He had sent her a good night text around 11 o'clock, and he still hadn't heard anything. He goes to work. He, of course, is in a pissy mood. Rachel can tell. He tells her what happened. And Rachel's like, you know what? Maybe she really just did need a day. Give her some time. He's like, okay. So he goes back to work halfway through the day. He's called her like 3 times, no response. So now he's in like full-fledged worry mode. So he decides he's going to go to her apartment. He gets there. He's talking to the building manager, telling him the situation. The guy eventually caves. It's like, okay. He's like, but you got to stay with me when we go up there. So he goes up with him. And he had made the comment to the guy, make sure she's not bloodied or something. And so they get up there. He goes, looks in the room, and he sees that suitcase is gone, and he knows it. She freaking ran. Catherine winds up getting off the bus after about 12 hours because, again, she doesn't like the bus. And she stopped outside of Portland. She's just going to take another day on that bus. So she gets this little old motel. She's is soaking up a little bit in the pool. She thinks she might have made a kindred spirit, a woman named Lindsay. Seems to appear that she's running as well. She left from Arkansas and didn't have a destination. And so Catherine was like, yeah, she's probably running from something too. And she gets back to her room and she just cries because she knows she's never going to meet another man like Ben again. He's like a one in a lifetime. And she just mourns the life that she had in San Francisco because she, feels like she can't go back. She can't visit, can't do anything. Ben, of course, is afraid Tim could have possibly taken her. So he is spiraling. He's not going to work. He's talked with his lawyer, Meredith. Meredith, ooh, I can't talk today. She has a private eye that is looking for her. They don't want to scare her. They're just trying to make sure she's okay. And he wants to just at least get a message to her. He talks to Rachel, lets her know he's not coming in, probably not even Monday either. If they haven't found her, she's like, okay, I get it, no problem. He's at home on the phone talking to Meredith, and he gets his doorbell rings. It's the sheriff. They're coming to serve him papers. And so basically just what we knew what was going to happen. Tim was going to paint himself as the victim. And Mary was like, we knew this was going to happen. She's like, but you need to hire a publicist. He's like, but I've never had one. She's like, I don't care. You can afford it and you got to do it. She also wants to try and find Catherine as soon as possible too, because she needs her to sign the paperwork for the protection order. So that way, if he's reaching out to her, Tim is, in any form or fashion, she can start hitting him with violations. So he's so worried about her. It's so, like, to read that portion, it was like, oh, poor Ben. You feel bad for him. And I felt bad for Catherine too when she was crying, because she didn't want to do it, but she really did feel like she's doing the best thing for everybody. Meredith also told him before they got off the phone that they had received the divorce papers back, and it literally had a note attached that said no. And he goes, that's why she ran. He probably threatened her. He said something to her, and she's running to protect me. And I was like, thankfully he understood it that fast. It wasn't like, oh, but why would she go? He immediately knew, like, okay, that's what it is. That's why she ran. We switch back to Catherine. She's moved to another city. She only spent that one night in that city. She's still around Portland. She left because she noticed that they had a gossip trail that was pretty, it was quick. Like by that, before that, by that morning, she had heard something about herself come back to her. So she's like, nope, this is too small. This town talks too much. I got to get out of here. And plus, she felt like it rained too much. Yes, it made everything green, but it was depressing and she was already in a bad mood. So she goes to like a Quality Inn in another city. She decides to get some breakfast. She sees a newspaper article. It's got Ben's face plastered on it. She takes it back to her room. She reads it. Realizes her leaving did nothing. Um, Everything in this article was a bunch of lies. She doesn't go into detail particularly. We just know, she just says it's just a bunch of lies. But we figured it would be that because it's Tim, you know. She knows that with Tim, if he doesn't have the dirt on you, he'll just make the shit up. And so she realizes again, her running away, it didn't protect Ben. It's nothing's going to protect it because this person is just so destructive. They're just going to keep coming at her nonstop, you know? So she winds up going to a Best Buy. She buys an iPad. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to start doing some stalking on him. So she builds this profile, this Facebook profile, and she gets a picture of a beautiful woman because she knows what Tim likes. And sure enough, not even 5 minutes later, he's clicking on the page, accepting the friend request. So now she can see everything on his page because his page was private. And she can now look at what he's been up to. So he's been dating a woman named Alexandra for like over 6 months. And it's like, you're dating someone publicly. Like, it has showing him on a yacht. And you're putting this woman on social media. But you've been around here making this girl's life hell. I'm like, this is just so awful. So then she's going through the social media. She sees he's been dating since she left. And she knew he was a serial cheater before. But she didn't care because it just meant, you know, he stayed out of her bed. So she was fine with it. So it's still the idea that he's doing all of this like he just misses her so much, and he doesn't. It's literally just this control power trip for him. That's it. So she sees the Alexandra girl's profile. She sees the woman. She's not some hotshot lawyer. He has a pattern. He gets people with like a simple job, someone that he can, you know, really woo, right? And lures them in. Gets that control. So he's a total predator, awful human. So she's like, you know what? I'm not staying here. She is like, I am going to get a ticket. We don't know where she's going, but she's like, she's buying an Amtrak train ticket. And she just knows she needs to warn Alexandra. We switch back to Ben, and he's in a settlement meeting with Tim and Tim's lawyers. Tim has like 2 lawyers. And so before he had left, Rachel had told him, just make sure you don't lose your cool, you know. And Meredith wound up telling him the same thing when he did get to the meeting. Before they walked in, she said, don't you say anything. Like, don't say anything out of the way. I got this. So Meredith made sure they arrived late. It was a power play. The 2 lawyers were pissed. And they were like, you know, this is why... No, Meredith had said, we're not paying you 1 red cent, so there's really no point in this meeting. And they said, no, matter of fact, you're going to pay double because we have proof that your client attacked, you know, ours and all this type of stuff. And Meredith's like, well, then we'll countersue because we have witness statements showing that your client was the aggressor. So then Tim and Ben go at it. They have words. Ben is antagonizing Tim because he's trying to get him to lose it. But saying stuff like, you couldn't please her and all this type of shit. She now has a real man, and it was crazy because Tim does lunge across the table at that Ben. And it shows that he is crazy, but I mean, everyone already knows that he's crazy. Meredith, of course, is like, we're going to countersue for defamation, for this public smear campaign you got going on. And it reaches an impasse, and Meredith is like, we're done, They were like, we'll just keep going. I'll keep having my lawyers do stuff, and lawyers get expensive, and we'll ask for double now and all this type of crap, and you'll be responsible for the legal fees. And Meredith was just like, we can drag this on as long as you want. Ditto. Same thing will be for you when I win. Double, and you're going to have to pay for my legal fees. So they leave out Ben for sure feels victorious. We switch back to Catherine. We find out she went to LA. So she's been doing some stalking of Alexandra. And we find out she works at a grocery store. She's a checkout woman. And so she goes up, buys some gum, and asks her if she can speak with her. And the girl was like, yeah, I got a break in a few minutes. We can meet outside. Now, the fact that she was so receptive to talk to her, I'm not going to lie, it made me really suspicious. And then a few minutes later, Alexandra comes out. Catherine tells her who she is, and Alexandra's like, I know who you are. Your pictures are plastered all around the mansion. So Catherine goes into telling her, X, Y, and Z, and of course Alexandra's like, she's not buying it. Tells her, he told me you're the one that left with the pool guy and all this type of stuff. And she enlightens Alexandra of about his broken nose. And Alexandra was like, he got mugged in Chicago. He was on a business trip. And Catherine was like, oh no, he wasn't. He was stalking me in San Francisco. And my boyfriend beat the shit out of him. And so the girl, she knows she's telling the truth. But at the same time, she's afraid of Tim, right? So I think she doesn't want to make any waves. So Catherine gives her a burner phone. Tells her, I'm using a burner phone as well. If you need me, call me. I'll believe you. And she left it at that. Because there's nothing, I guess, you can do at that point. Now, me personally, I think it should have been very easy for her to believe. Because Catherine knows that this girl is getting hurt as well, because she could see where the girl was covering up bruises in some of the photos. And that's what really made her go, oh my gosh, I need to go warn her. So if he's already being physical with her and it's been 6 months, he's coming unglued, because he at least waited a while with Catherine before he started with the physical stuff, right? So the mere fact that if your wife really left you, okay, for the pool guy, why is she still hanging up in all the pictures in the house? That doesn't make sense. There's no logic behind that, at all. None. So I think the Alexandra girl was just, she's afraid of him. She doesn't know what move to make. My thing with her was, I don't know, she was just too easily ready to talk to her. But maybe because she does see the photos, maybe she does realize, something's not really adding up with this. So maybe she thought she would get some answers, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. So then we switch back to Ben. He's been sending her emails every day, of course, telling her how much he misses her and all this stuff. He doesn't know if she's getting the emails. He's still concerned that Tim could have tried to do something to her, or that he has access to her emails and, she's not even getting them. Just all kind of thoughts he's having in his head, because he saw that her phone was left at the apartment. So he knows she doesn't have that same phone. Ben's talking to Rachel, and he's just kind of like, I don't know how that guy keeps finding her so fast with his goons, because Meredith's PI guys aren't having any luck. Rachel is a little afraid that Tim may have done something to her as well. They both have had that same thought. But Ben's like, I really think she ran. I really think that's what it is, So Rachel's like, okay, we'll stick to that, Let's have the hope. He, of course, is like, he doesn't want to force her to come back. If she doesn't want to come back, he understands that. He just wants her to know that there's people here that support her. They're in her corner, and they'll help her, That's pretty much it. Rachel is like, give her time. She's going to come around. She's a fighter. So she's still in LA. It's been a few days, and she gets a call from Alexandra, and she asks to meet up. And at first I was like, this is a fucking setup. I was like, I was just like, there's no way. I was like, this has got to be a setup, right? So she, of course, does scope the place out and stuff like that. And even though she knew Tim could still walk up at any time, she still you know, went ahead and met up with her. And Rachel had told her before, like, you need to get some mace or something, like, to protect yourself if somebody grabs you. And I'm like, see, this is why she told you this would have been the perfect time in case something had to happen. So they have a conversation. Alexandra actually goes by Alex, so that's what I'm gonna call her from now on. That's what everyone used to call her anyway. So she starts telling her the story. She tells her, the first time he, hurt her, she thought it was just like a one off, right? He apologized so profusely. He had been drunk, you know, she forgave him. And then it keeps happening. And she said, she's either at home or work. He only calls to make sure that that's where she is. Um, she's been in that house all by herself, so she's been doing some snooping. And she talks about this locked drawer. And Catherine knew automatically what she was talking about. She's like, yeah, he always keeps that locked. And Alex says, well, I found the key, and here's the information from it. She was like, I'm going to give it to you. You'll know what to do with it. She said, I'm leaving him. I'm going back to move in with my dad. My dad never liked him anyway, never trusted him, and my dad's going to protect me. I'll be fine. And Catherine was like, you need to make sure you leave tonight. Like, go get your stuff and you need to go. Don't take any chances. And the girl was like, yep, no problem. That's what's going to happen. And then we find out what's in that paperwork. So, this bitch has been paying off judges. He's been paying to have witnesses disappear. And he's been keeping a fucking record of it. So Catherine was like, oh, we're going to use this situation to get him under control. She is not going to turn it over to anybody because I don't even think that would be smart. You need to play his game, He's trying to do all this evil stuff, but you have the information that can truly get him under subjection, and I love it. We switch back to Ben. He is in a bad mood, of course, because he's been that way since she left. He calls Talia to check in, see if maybe she's heard from her. She hasn't. And Talia just kind of tells her how happy she is that she really does have someone that really cares and worries about her as well. So then he decides he's going to get drunk. And then he hears the doorbell. He thinks it's Rachel, but it is our girl, Catherine, honey. Catherine has returned. And he just grabbed her and hugged her so tight. She kept saying, I'm sorry. He's like, you don't have to apologize. He was just so happy to see her, to know she was alive. He's checking her out to see if she's hurt. He was just beyond happy. Then of course he kisses her, and then they start going at each other with pure tenacity. So they of course have this like ferocious fuck session. I think they both needed it, And so it was a great scene to read. Really was a great one. After that, what made it so great, you really felt the emotion. Like you felt like you were in the room with them, like that with someone you missed so much, and you could feel it. It was the writing was really great. It really was. So then Catherine tells Ben everything that's happened, the information she has. Ben is kind of like, I don't know if that is a good idea. She's like, oh, I'm gonna do it, she's like, I'll do it on my own, if you want to help me, great, but if not, I'm doing it. He doesn't think it's a good idea, but at the same time, he's like, I'm going to back you up. But his fear is, and I understand it, he thinks, listen, we already know this guy is not operating on all screws, He's got quite a few screws loose. Tim is a psychopath. And so he doesn't know, like, is this going to send him over the edge? And then he really does something to you? Like, But she feels like I need to end this. And so Tim's like, okay. So he has a settlement meeting coming up in like a week. And he's like, okay, I'll talk to Meredith, see if we can work it out to where you can talk to him before the settlement. She's hoping she can get him to sign those divorce papers as well. So this is the plan, this is her plan. And I get her feeling like I need to do this because this man is taking her through so much. Um, but I'm also glad that Ben is like, I'm not gonna leave you out here by yourself. We're gonna back you up. We're not gonna leave you alone. Because Ben was like, he definitely wanted to be there to see her deliver that blow. She goes back to her apartment. She calls Talia, apologizes profusely. Talia's like, um, I'm mad at you, but I forgive you. I'm just glad you're safe. And so Catherine's like, what are you doing today? And Talia's like, I'm off. She's like, okay, then we're going to have a girls' day. We're going to cook and do all this stuff. And so Talia comes over. They have a long embrace. Talia cried. She cried. It was so sweet. She's like, I'm mad at you, but I missed you so much. So they go to the store. They're going to make a pasta dish. They get wine. They're on the way back, and she feels like something's off. And she goes looking throughout the apartment. Talia can figure out, like, okay, so she goes and looks in the closets too, and everything's clear. So then Talia's like, okay, I want all the tea. Tell me everything that's going on. And, Catherine sees, yeah, she really does have that support system here. These people are really in her corner, and they don't want to go anywhere. They want to remain there. So Ben is finally able to focus at work. So he's getting caught up, and he's going to buy his management team some really lavish gifts for holding down the fort when he wasn't doing that much while Catherine was missing. So he's going to have lunch with Will, and him and Will talk about Rachel. Rachel, this is the thing. Both Rachel and Will are very coy about talking about each other. It's so weird. And Ben is trying to get them to like profess their love for each other to him. And Will is like, I'm just not trying to force anything. I just want it to happen naturally. I don't want to overwhelm her, And I laugh because I'm like, yeah, you sound just like Ben. You don't want to overwhelm the person. So then when he switches it on him and say, well, how do you feel about Catherine? He goes, oh, I'm madly in love with her. Like, no, that's what I feel. But I haven't told her yet because so much is going on and I don't want to freak her out. I just don't want to. So Will is like, we need to do what we did that one night. All of us go back to that bar, because we all had a great time. So he's like, I'll ask Catherine, see if she wants to, set something up. Meredith and Ben set it up so she could talk to Tim. Tim, of course, is all nasty, calling her stupid, calling her a bitch, all kind of stuff. Because he's thinking, that she doesn't have anything. And then she pulls out the file. And he's looking like, oh, did you draw some pictures? Like, just antagonizing her. And so he opens it. He sees what it is. He's like, how did you get this? And she says, I don't remember. So then he's like panicking now, but he's trying not to show the panic, right? And he knows she's got that upper hand. And so he starts trying to act like, she's not going to, in other words, trying to throw it on her like, you're not going to do anything, So I don't even know why. She's like, oh, I think I will. She's like, you need to drop the lawsuit and then you're going to sign these divorce papers. He starts telling her, he at first is like, never, She's like, no, you will. Because if you don't, I'm going to send these out to news outlets, to the bar, And he rips up the paperwork and he's like, you're such an idiot. And she's like, I'm not dumb. She's like, do you really think that's the only copy I have? So now he's panicking. And he's trying to make her operate. He's trying to operate out of, making her being fearful. And he's saying to her, you can't use that, people might come after you and all this type of stuff. But he knew she had that smoking gun. He knew it. And so when he saw that he couldn't scare her, he just was like, fuck it. He wound up signing the damn papers. And then he tries to tell her he's never going to marry you. You're just something that he fucks, just trying to make her, trying to fuck with her head because, again, he does not want to see her happy at all. And so he's just, gosh, he's so awful. And she just says to him, like, he's a great man, like, he would never do the type of things that you did. He understands what it is to protect a woman, to love a woman. And I was so happy she stood up to him. And then Ben's lawyers finally arrived. They see what's going on and they're furious. So then they are like, we need to meet with our, client. Ben and Meredith go in with the lawyers, and they're like, oh, I thought we were dropping this. The lawyers are like, what are you talking about? We are absolutely not dropping this. And then Tim says he will be dropping it, and the lawyers lose it. So then Ben and Meredith leave out. His lawyers and him, they're shouting, going back and forth. And it was just beyond asinine. So then they were like, if you do this, we're going to quit. And he says, you're both fired. They leave. He signs the paper. He leaves out of signing that paperwork. No, because there was a paper that he had to sign that said, not alone that he was just dropping the suit, but that he couldn't come back and try and sue later. That's the paper they want to make sure he signed, and that's the one even more so that made the lawyers so pissed off. But he signed it. And he tried to, when he left out, he said to Ben, she's only with you for your money. And Ben said, well, she's going to have a lot of money of her own when she gets yours. So we clearly see he was trying to play like these mind games between the two of them, thinking that was going to do something. Because normally he can play bullshit games and it works. But it did not. So he leaves out. I'm thinking he's going to like do something to her. So Ben like stays like right on top of him because he's like, oh, because he was headed right for her. And Tim's like, you really think you won? He's like, what do you think those judges are going to do when they find out? They're going to be pissed knowing that you're threatening me with this type of crap. And she didn't buy into it. She knew he was trying to figure out a way to get her to not expose him, you know? And he's like, the judges will come after you, all this type of stuff. And she just says, he says to her, I hope I never see your face again. He's like, you're nothing but a problem, and now you're Ben's problem. And it's fun. He's doing all this stuff because he lost. He knows he lost. There's no more cards to play. That's it. And she doesn't fear him anymore. There's no control like that. So he leaves. She's happy. Meredith was hoping that Ben would have actually punched him because she couldn't stand him. So then they go back to his place because he was like, let's go out. Let's have a really overpriced meal. And he had a surprise for her. He had his nice dress ready for her, some diamonds, a beautiful necklace and earrings, so they could get all dolled up and go out. She was so excited and just so happy to be able to experience this with Ben. They get to hang out with Will and Rachel a few days later. They decide they're going to make this little place their place, and they're going to come at least once a month because they all love the vibe of it. Catherine and Rachel are getting closer. It's a beautiful thing. They leave from there, and of course, they get in the back seat because he had hired a driver, and she's wearing a skirt. He's rubbing on her clit, kissing on her, and they about break their neck trying to get out of the limo to get into his place. And then, of course, they have this hard fuck session, and afterwards, he tells her he loves her, and she's like, she says, I love you, and he says, that's a relief. She's like, that was not the response she had anticipated. He's like, no, I was scared. Like, if I told you how I felt about you, I was going to scare you off. She's like, I fell in love with you like a long time ago, so it's been that. She tells him I may be neurotic for a little while, looking over my shoulder, but I think with time that will eventually go away. She's not going to work at a coffee shop. She thinks she might take some business classes and see how that works. We fast forward about 3 months. She is living with Ben. She had been kind of apprehensive about doing it at first, feeling like maybe it was too soon. But then when her and Talia talked, Talia was like, girl, you need to do what makes you happy. Like, forget about what should be. You do what you need to do for yourself. And so she absolutely loves waking up to him every morning. She knows she's made the right decision. So they see a newspaper article, and she tells Ben, you need to read this. He's like, I don't do newspapers. And she's like, oh, this one you want to read. Plastered on the front page, it is freaking Tim Marshall. He has been exposed. His bribery with the judges, all kind of stuff. He's been disbarred. The FBI is now involved. He has money offshore. He had made a statement to Captain one time about how he had money everywhere. So he's going down. They said it came from an anonymous source. And so she asked Ben, like, was it you? And he's like, nope. He's like, I thought maybe it was you. And she's like, I think it was probably Alex. And he probably tried to make her come back, and she was like, you know what? You're not going to get me, because I guarantee you that girl kept a copy of them papers for herself. I believe that with every fiber of my being. So I was happy because I was like, yes, I wanted him to be taken down, because he was just going to continue the same behavior. It was going to be another woman that was going to get hurt. It was going to be another witness in a case that was going to go missing. It was going to be always something, because he was so crooked and evil. And so I'm glad he got exposed and destroyed in public opinion, and in the court system. I'm excited. I loved it. We find out the reason she's been taking that she wants to do the business classes is because she wants to open up her own coffee shop. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. Like, she wants to really do something that's like laid back vibe. She enjoyed working in a place like that. And so she thinks it would be really nice to own it. She's got like a lot of money from her divorce settlement, and she's going to run it the right way. She's going to pay her workers a good wage. I think it'll be really good for her. So she's going to take some time off. And that's what she's been doing, like this time that she's been taking off. She's just trying to figure out her plan for her business. And then it was actually Ben's idea for her to do it because she had so much money from the settlement. So then he surprises her with a trip. And he's like, he took off the week. And he's like, let's go somewhere tropical. And he's going to take her to Fiji. And he's like, everything's ready. Just waiting for you to pack. So she goes and packs her clothes. She calls Talia on the way to she was going to call Talia. He's like, call her on the way to the airport, And she is just so happy that she gets to have this man in her life. And they really get to start their lives together. And that is how it ends. I love this. I thought this was a really cute read. I cannot tell you how ecstatic I was that freaking Tim was exposed. Who do you all think sent the anonymous proof? I think it was Alex, or it could have possibly been Meredith. I feel like Meredith could have got her hands on it some type of way. She's good. But I really think it was probably Alex. And even if we we'll never know, but I'm just so happy that it happened. So let me know what you guys think. What did you think of this book? What did you think of the series? Let me know. If you have any suggestions, feel free to drop down in the comment section and let me know what those are, and I will eventually get to them. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and that link is going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.